Welcome back. Wall Street marking 24 years since 9/11, the attacks on the World Trade Center taking place just blocks from here in Lower Manhattan with a devastating impact on the business community. Our next guest was the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald at the time of the attacks. His firm lost 658 employees during that day, including his own brother. With us here at Post 9, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Secretary Lutnick, it's good to see you. It's good to have you here. I always think of you on this day and the enormous loss that you suffered. And what is it like for you to be here 24 years later?
Well, 658 people were lost. My brother Gary, my best friend Doug. We had a rule at the company. We only want to work with people that we like. So bring in your friends, but make sure they're the good ones. They had to be the good ones. And so these were really groups of people who really cared about each other. Lost 20 sets of brothers, and one pair of sisters were killed. So it's so emotional, so tough. I was there this morning when they started the memorial, reading the names. And then I'm going to stop by my old firm because, you know, I'm not there anymore for their charity day when they raise money for charity. But it's always a very, very tough day.
Yeah, I mean, you actually, the charity day is quite known on Wall Street. You've raised a lot of money for families, victims, and a larger philanthropy effort. Tell us a little bit about how you made it into a big day.
I think the company's over $350 million, so they'll raise, $12 million or more today, and all the employees waive their day's pay, and all the clients just pour in the business, and they give it all away. And then to make it fun for our employees who don't make any money, they have all these celebrities come. So, for example, I hear all the Knicks are coming today and things like that, just to make it fun for the employees. And it's really special, but they really remember the people who work there.
I mean,
it's a long time ago.
24 years. Some people that work here weren't alive during this time.
They have trainees who weren't even born.
Right.
It's incredible.
What do you tell them? What do you want them to know?
Well, the people who died, they were just living the American dream, right? They were coming to work, taking care of their families, and then they just never had the chance. So you just want to remember how great America is. America is a beautiful, beautiful country. But our adversaries, and now that I'm in the government and I have the highest clearance, you can read everything, and I get to read everything, and it is just nasty. Our adversaries want to kill us. They want to harm us. They want evil. And so the beauty of America needs to always be remembered. We are the most extraordinary country. We're a beautiful, beautiful people. Americans are great. There are evil people amongst us, but Americans generally are the most beautiful people on earth.
And I always think about the story you tell about why you were spared that day, because you were taking your son to kindergarten.
Right. So my boy, my oldest son, it was his first day of kindergarten. So we dropped him off that morning. That's why I wasn't in the World Trade Center. We had the 101st to the 105th floor. So the views were amazing. You had from Statue of Liberty one way, all of Manhattan on the other. I always called it democratic views. It didn't matter which window you had. Every window was as good as you could possibly have. And, so that's where I was. And then I drove right down as soon as the plane hit the building. And I was in the doorway of One World Trade Center, the North Tower, when number 2 collapsed. So number 1 collapses, I'm not here with you, but it just so happened the other one collapsed, and I ran my tail off dressed like this, running with that big sort of black cloud chasing me, and then I dove under a car, but it was,
Yeah.
It was harrowing, to say the least.
I mean, your story is one of resilience and rebuilding, and, today is actually an extra sad day with the assassination and murder of Charlie Kirk, someone you knew.
Well, my friend got killed. My friend was assassinated yesterday, and in like a pro job with a sniper from 200 yards away, shooting at him. That's nothing you can protect yourself. You can't protect yourself from a sniper. And then they killed my friend. I mean, Charlie spent dozens of hours with me when I was doing transition, just helping sort of sort through names and pick people. And he was just my friend. And he was really a special person because he wanted discourse. He just wanted, if you disagreed with him, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. Prove me wrong. I want to have that conversation.
I know. It's incredible. And that's what he was doing when he was killed, just talking. I mean, Howard, since you're here, we want to talk to you about your role, of course, and some of what you have on your plate, which is a lot. including the trade negotiations. Which ones are you most focused on right now?
Well, we're going to sort out India. You know, India basically has to open their market, has to stop buying Russian oil. You know, people don't remember, India didn't buy Russian oil before the war with Russia and Ukraine. They had 1% of their oil was from Russia. And now 40% of their oil is from Russia because we've sanctioned it so they can buy it, you know, $7, $10 a barrel cheap. So they're buying it, refining it, and then selling it to the rest of the world and making a bundle. So the president called nonsense on that and said, you got to stop that stuff. So I think India will sort it out once they stop buying Russian oil. We've got a big deal coming with Taiwan. We'll probably get a deal done with Switzerland. You know, Switzerland will sort its way out over time. You know, we'll see how that works out. But those are countries that are still out there. And, of course, South Korea. We made a deal, but let's see if they come through with the paperwork. You know, Japan came through with the paperwork. You know, it's one thing to shake the president's hand. It's another thing when the pen has to meet the paper.
Would you say Japan's the best success story right now when it comes to trade agreements?
Well, Europe and Japan are just amazing. I mean, Europe, 450 million people, $20 trillion economy, agreeing we will completely open to America, including taking our cars without their sort of nonsensical rules. And they'll pay 15% to us. So that was huge. And then Japan, who was never really going to open their market. I mean, you got to remember, 94% of Japanese cars, right, are Japanese, right? It's only 6%. And what American cars do we sell there? The Yakuza. You know, the gangsters drive Chevys. You know what I mean? So it's culturally not there. So they gave us $550 billion to invest for the benefit of America. Build the Alaska pipeline. Build nuclear power plants. Make your grid better. Do generic antibiotics in America. So the president has this National and Economic Security Fund to make America better because Japan was never going to really open their market. So they said, you know what? We'll buy down our tariff. So this is the power of giving the tariff and the economic policy to a businessman in the Oval Office who understands we can make America better, we can make America stronger. Tariffs are bringing in $40 billion a month, reducing our deficit. You know how much taxes we'd have to charge Americans? They have that much money?
You know, I do wonder, and we've had this conversation, we'll continue to, in terms of the manufacturing side, because there's no doubt the tariffs are coming in. They're not causing a lot of inflation, which you said, and Sarah certainly has been articulating. But it's not clear that they're also bringing manufacturing jobs yet either. There's no measurement I've seen of late that indicates they're coming back. It may be they're coming back, and we've had this conversation. It may be robotics. It may be that we get more activity, but it's not necessarily human activity.
Okay, August 1st, we make the deal with all these countries, right? So now everybody knows their tariff, right? So now you're going to see factories get built in America at a scale that you have never seen before, okay? More than $10 trillion of factory build coming. All right. And so there's huge amount of construction jobs. So I would say the first quarter of next year will be the best quarter of construction jobs this country's ever seen. And that's going to roll all the way through 26. So I think you're going to see GDP growth next year over 4%.
You do. 4%. 10 trillion over what period of time, Secretary?
Mr. Donald J. Trump, the president of the United States, during his term, you know, we negotiate. It's got to build it while we're watching you. Saying you're going to build it in 5 years? Come on, how's that help us? So President Trump's going to get these builds now, and you're going to see GDP growth even before the factories open, because construction jobs are amazing. So I tell you what, if you're in the construction business, everybody's going to be looking at you thinking you look great.
With data centers, and which are going up.
So you have data centers, but you have all these factories.
What are you talking about when you say that? What are you thinking about in terms of industries? Because
drugs.
You talk about drugs, but exports of automobiles. I mean, you've talked to Farley from Ford. I know you must have. He's very outspoken, saying, hey, it's not clear to me that we're going to be selling our automobiles anywhere except in the United States, given the rise of BYD and other Chinese competitors, for example, that are so aggressive.
But the West, so the Europeans are going to block Chinese cars. They're going to learn their lesson. People learn from us that you got to block their cars because those are not competitive cars. Those are government-backed cars.
Well, they're competitive on price.
I mean, remember,
maybe because they're subsidized.
Come on, 2 months ago, they cut their prices 34% in China for electric cars. right? Remember, they don't have oil, so they need electric cars. They're always trying to get us to buy their cars because they don't have oil, and we'll be helping them if we do it. But the fact is, you're going to have these robotic arms. Like, we've all seen videos of a modern car plant, right? There's 3,000 Americans who work in those plants, but they're technicians who fix the robots, who fix the HVAC system, because these are cooling systems. Each time one of these factories is built, right, could be a $10 billion factory, employs 3,000 Americans, right? And you're going to have millions. We need 5 million technically employed, technically trained and employed Americans to fill these jobs. Those Americans are sitting on the sideline. When I went to high school, we had shop class. And they got rid of shop class and made everybody go to a liberal arts college. Those people are sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
They're sitting on the sidelines because they just don't want to be in the marketing department of this or that company. They want to work with their hands. They want to do things outside. These people are going to come back to work. You're going to see a growing U.S. workforce. And these people are going to be the arms and legs of the 5 million construction workers and the 5 million factory workers that are coming to America. You're going to see it start in 26, and it's going to be full fire in 27.
So you're not worried about not having enough people after deportations, after some of the enforcement of Hyundai workers? You think there'll be enough people to build these factories and homes and everything else?
We need vocational schools. We need community colleges. We need our state universities to start doing training. So Donald Trump is arguing with Harvard, trying to settle with Harvard. If Harvard settles with Donald Trump, you know what he's going to do with the $500 million? He's going to have Harvard build vocational schools. The Harvard Vocational School, because that's what America needs. We need to train people for the jobs that are coming, fixing robots, right? HVAC systems. You look at these fabs, these high-tech semiconductors, right? These are the coolest air conditioning systems you've ever seen. I met a pipe fitter when I was out in Arizona at a $20 billion plant, and I said, you're a pipe fitter? He goes, it's Tetris, Mr. Secretary. You won't believe I've got to get these pipes in this little corner, and I got to make it all work. And he was pumped up about his job. And I said, how much did you get paid to start? He goes, when I got my first job, they paid me $75 grand. I'm up to $125,000 now. He goes, and I love my job. And he was wearing like a clean room. I mean,
no, but they also require a certain
coming.
level of technical expertise, as you kind of pointed out.
They got to be trained.
Welding these days, I mean, there's a high level of math and things of that nature.
Oh, they got to be trained. You got to have 6 months of training. But if you realize it, if you go through that 6 months of training, there's a catcher's mitt of all these companies doing the construction and doing this operation who's going to love you on the way out. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to have the greatest workforce training in the history of America as we train these 5 million people who are currently sitting on the sidelines, and we know they're sitting on the sidelines. It's time for them to come out, get the right jobs, and build America.
Right. To the point on Hyundai, so is the Korea trade deal in jeopardy now?
Well, the Koreans didn't sign when the president was in, right? The president came in. You remember that? He came to the White House. Notice how we didn't talk about trade? Because he didn't sign the piece of paper. I mean, the devil is in the details always. Well, I think they saw the Japanese now, so there's no flexibility, right? The Japanese signed the contract. The Koreans either accept that deal or pay the tariffs, black and white. Pay the tariffs or accept the deal.
But has the immigration raid led to more tension there about?
I think you're going to see President Trump go out and address that. He knows that to build these great factories, we need leadership of people who've built them before if he wants to do it fast. So I think he's going to make a deal with the different countries that when they want to build big here, he'll find a way to get their workers proper work visas, meaning short-term work visas, train Americans, and then head home. I think the president is very clear. I think you're going to see an ABC from him. A, you come in, B, you train Americans, and C, you head on home.
We talked about the $550 billion from Japan. You mentioned it earlier. I'll continue to. I'm curious again, sort of specifics of how that works. I mean, you've described it in sort of broad terms, like the president wants this and they're going to do it. Is that the way the Japanese see it? And/or, they're not putting $500 billion in a fund right now, so it's project by project. Give us a little more sense as to really how that money is going to be spent.
So there's an investment committee. We suggest projects. Let's say the Alaska LNG pipeline, We want to invest $100 billion and finally unleash the American oil and natural gas that we have in Alaska. $100 billion project. The president green lights it. We hire the construction people, and we send a capital call to the Japanese. They send in the money. We build the pipeline, and when the cash flow starts, we share the cash flow, the United States of America and the government of Japan, 50-50 until they get their money back. So when they get their $550 billion, you know the United States of America only made $550 billion, and then after that, it's 90-10 in favor of America.
Okay, so what? Okay, that's actually more detail than I was aware of. So almost a preferred return, and then we get the 90% after they get their money back.
Right. But if you think about it from their perspective,
which could be a long period of time, by the way.
But from their perspective, their taxpayers are not going to lose any money, because what we promised them is these are going to be national and economic security investments. Like the pipeline is money good for them. They're going to get their money back, right? When we build nuclear power plants, which we're going to build, they're going to get their money back. So it doesn't cost their taxpayers any money. They have to blow up their balance sheet.
They do.
They have to go borrow the money, but we're not borrowing any money. They're going to borrow the money at their grand 1% interest rate, right?
Yeah, although they got a lot of debt over there.
They send us the money. We don't have any debt at all. They send us the money, and as we pay it back over time, their taxpayers won't cost any money, and they'll have a lower tariff. So for their country's perspective, it's a good deal. It didn't cost their taxpayers money, right? They saved their taxpayers money by having a lower tariff and keeping the domestic manufacturing going. And for us, we get pipelines, we get nuclear power plants.
When do you think you'll announce the first deal under that? Do you know? Do you have anything in the pipeline?
I had meetings all day yesterday on the topic. Antibiotics, right? China makes generic antibiotics. We're building antibiotics in America. The president put out a list of 230 critical medicines. You know where we're going to build those critical medicines?
Here.
In America. So I think that's the power of the president's tariff and economic policy to make America generic antibiotics in America, nuclear power in America, fix the grid. I mean, how old is the grid? Upgrade the grid in America. Pipelines. I mean, these are...
Who's paying the tariffs? Who do you think? Because as I've been pointing out, it's not showing up in consumer prices like all the economists were worried about.
So the model is clear. 10% tariffs or less are paid by the manufacturers, the distributors, the businesses. The consumer doesn't pay, right? The consumer doesn't pay because the sellers don't want to raise their price, because if they could, they would have, but they don't want to sell less. So they eat it. Above 10%, it's shared. And it's about 60-40 towards the distributor and the manufacturer. So if you go up 5 points to 15, you'd see about 2% in the price. And above 15, of course, no one can handle that. That gets put on unless the government covers it. So what you saw in cars when we had 25%, before Europe made the deal and before Japan made their deal, the government of South Korea, Japan, and Europe covered it because they didn't want to hurt their employment. So you got to remember, these are big things. And our president is playing the big hand for America. And some of these governments play the little hand for their country's good. And that's why you're not seeing it, because our average tariff rate is not that high. Most of the world is less than 15%. And therefore, we're not going to see it, and it's not inflation. Because remember, inflation thinks, okay, I bought this tie for $30. It's going to be $33 next year and $36 the year after. Tariffs don't change your effect. It's a one-and-done deal, so it's not inflation.
But this 18% number we hear, you don't think is real? I mean, the effective tariff rate that many economists have come to?
Well, Japan is paying an average tariff. China's paying an average tariff of 52%, okay? But the government of China is eating most of it. So while that's an high average when you count in China, the government of China is covering most of that cost. And that's why it's not there, because the president has played his hand really, really smart. He understands it. We understand it. Right? We are working it across the world, but effectively, America has raised over $500 billion. It's going to grow to about $700 billion a year. And with growth of our economy, the president says we're going to get to $1 trillion. right? Think about that. Not paid out of our taxes.
Understood.
I mean, this is
even though
awesome.
the courts are trying to block it.
Yeah. Can I, on China, since I think we're going to run out of time with you, TikTok. Where do things stand right now, Secretary? You know, I know the ban or the exemption of the ban is set to expire soon. I always hear about whether there's going to be a deal potentially done. Can you give us any sense as to how that's moving along and or what the Chinese are thinking?
We're talking. They're talking about it. The president likes TikTok. You know, he did well communicating with young people through TikTok, so he's partial to it. But unless it's owned by Americans and the algorithm is controlled by Americans, because you know eventually that app in your phone, everything with China has a call daddy in it.
No doubt. That's why there was a bill
it's
banning
all
it.
in there. Everything you buy from China has a call daddy in it. If you buy their chip, it's got a call daddy in it. So you know if you use Chinese things, they're going to connect to you. They'll know where you are. They'll know what you're thinking. They'll be in your phone. So the president knows if we're going to have TikTok here, that's got to go. That's got to go. And that's what we're talking about. If the president can get that, he's going to keep TikTok. If he can't, it's going to go dark.
We're going to lose you in a second, I think. But before you go, on SCOTUS, I'm sure you're confident SCOTUS will uphold tariffs. But if they don't, are you making contingency plans on refunds?
No, I mean, if you look at the dissent, right? It was 7-4. So look at the 4. The chief judge.
Yes, and the smart
judge.
The
former chief judge.
Yes.
And the incoming chief judge. And the smartest guy on the bench. 4 out of 4 of the best ruled. And what they wrote basically was you have to put foreign power, you know, the ability to deal with foreign relations in the hands of the president, who is elected by all of us. So I think it's going to be 5-4 or 6-3 in favor of the President of the United States, and we are supremely confident that the Supreme Court, I love the double supreme, is going to side with the President of the United States.
Finally, really quickly, Fannie Freddie, I know you've been working on this with Bill Pulte. Is there an update on the plans?
The model of taking the companies public, I think, has a lot of merit, and the president really likes that and supports it. Do I think it's going to be soon? I do. I think it's going to be sort of it could well be a this year thing. Now, do we want to sell a lot? No. What we want to do is show a mark to market, right? That the president shows these are assets that we, the American taxpayers, own, and look how much they're worth. Look how well they do. And what we want to do is keep the price of a home mortgage as low as mathematically possible. We don't want to take any action that raises that spread because that makes home ownership tougher. And we want to make home ownership easier. The president wants rates lower. He wants home ownership to be more affordable. And making sure we have home ownership with the lowest mortgage rates possible means we have to make sure the agencies are powerful, capable, and strong.
But that's something that you think is going to get done fairly soon.
I think sooner than people think.
Does the convert that the U.S. government owns, 79.9%, does that get converted to common at some point?
I'm going to leave the details to when we announce it. Okay. I have too much knowledge, unfortunately, so I can't really talk about too much stuff. Okay. But the answer is, I think a deal is going to be struck. I think we're going to take the company public. I think we're going to sell. It'll probably be it could potentially be the largest IPO in history. Right, but only a small percentage of these companies. And we'll show the American taxpayers these are assets that they didn't think they owned, but we own them. The taxpayers own them. President Trump thinks about the taxpayers for value all the time. Don't give Intel $11 billion. If you want to give Intel $11 billion, get equity for it. While people think that's weird, when you guys are in the New York Stock Exchange, that's not weird. That's called capitalism.
But it's also picking winners and losers from the government.
Well, why did the Biden administration gave Intel $11 billion? I didn't wake up in the morning and say, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to give Intel $11 billion. Get lost. We'd have never done the deal. But if there's a contract that says the U.S. government is giving away $11 billion, President Trump and I are going to go out there and say, let's get value for the American taxpayer for that. They're not going to build more chips in America for that $11 billion. Let's just get equity for it so at least America's taken care of and balanced.
It's got a national security, obviously, I mean, that's the key point.
You want Intel to do well.
But why the 15% on the NVIDIA chip sales in China, since we're talking about this? That one I don't quite follow. in terms of why that? I much better understand Intel, frankly.
So the president, so NVIDIA, right, comes to see the president, says, I'd like to sell these chips in China. And they are the H20 chips, so they're chips that, this is like right on the line, right? They're not our best chips, they're not our second best, they're not our third best. We've been through that lots of times. So
they didn't like you said that.
So they don't like that. But should they buy it or shouldn't they buy it? That's up to the president. It's really on the line. And he said, okay, I don't have to agree, or I can agree. What's in it for the American taxpayer? I know what's in it for you. If we say yes, you'll sell more chips. But what's in it for the American taxpayer? Why should we agree? Because, if the equities are in the balance, fine, we won't sell it. But if you want us to sell it, can the American taxpayer go along with it if it's right on that border? And they talked about it and they settled on 15%. So people say, well, why is that an okay thing? I don't know. I was in the room. It seemed really, really reasonable to me.
It did.
We won't sell it, or if you help the American taxpayer a little,
But you understand why some other companies say that's pay to play, right?
I mean, it's like, I want to get my merger done. Well, all right. I mean, you could make the same argument, couldn't you, Secretary?
I understand you can make all sorts of arguments, but Donald Trump is a real businessman, and he's doing it rationally and reasonably. Every one of those things. I'll give you the last example. The golden share, right?
Of U.S. Steel. Yeah.
Of U.S. Steel. So Nippon Steel promised 12 things. And once they buy the company, how are you going to enforce those 12 things? So we said, okay, our board member is just going to enforce those 12 things, right? They said they're going to close one of the plants that's in one of those 12 things. How about that? And guess what? Our board member just woke up, had a call with the CEO, and said, I don't think so. I mean, think about that. And then they were like technical, oh, no, we're going to keep the employees. It was nonsense. The idea of making people live to what they say is a smart way to do it, because otherwise, once a merger is a merger.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No say.
No say. But we have that say. Donald Trump enforced it, and it's fun working for him. It's really fun.
The Secretary of Deal Making, we should call you. Howard Lutnick, thank you very much. Meaningful to have you on today, and we got through a lot of your portfolio, so thank you for staying with us and taking all the questions. That is the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick.